Hello, bridge builders! I'm here with some exciting news. The first volume of interviews is now available on Amazon.com. The link can be found at eatlunchandboardgame.com. I promise that all proceeds from sales of this book will go right back into this podcast and channel. Whether that is new and better audio equipment for the podcast, or video equipment for the YouTube channel, or even more games to review, the money will not be wasted. Click over to Amazon and get your copy of Eat Lunch and Board Game, the first course today. And thank you for supporting the show. Welcome back to Eat Lunch and Board Game. I'm your host, Adam Collins, and with me today is producer and author John-Michael Gariepy. How you doing, John-Michael?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Adam?
I'm hanging in there. It's going to be an interesting week. Supposed to have thunderstorms, but they keep pushing them day by day, further out into the week. It always makes it hard to plan, so I just leave my umbrella in the car and one in the office and hope for the best.
Yeah. No, it's been heck of humid around here. I just live between two swamps, so...
I think I live in the swamp. In St. Louis, I always say it equates like living in an armpit.
It's no fun anyways.
So, John-Michael, how'd you get into gaming?
Well, I've been gaming ever since I was a little kid. My mom used to wallpaper, and she dragged me along with her. And there's only so many books you can read while you're waiting for your mom to pick up wallpaper. And eventually, at some point in time, we had brought puzzles in, and I'd play puzzles, but it would only last so long. But she knew I liked board games, and she'd keep picking up Milton Bradley specials, and I'd bring them in with me, and I'd play Monopoly, and I'd play Upwards by myself, and I'd play Screaming Eagles. And like every single game I could get my hands on, I'd just play them by myself over and over again. If I was lucky, there'd be a kid there or there'd be a dog there, but it was highly unlikely. It was oftentimes just me picking up the leavings of whatever she left behind and me stuck in a room with a board game. Included, oh man, I almost want to completely tear into. Have you ever come across the game No Respect by Rodney Dangerfield out of curiosity?
No, I'm familiar with Rodney Dangerfield and his catch line. But...
there's some really terrible Milton Bradley games that came out in the late 80s and early 90s, and this one really takes the cake. It's a game as Rodney Dangerfield in the front cover. It's got a couple of Rodney Dangerfield jokes on it. And then the board itself is like a number of plastic discs with numbers on it. And you're supposed to just build a chain of numbers going to the center of like higher amounts. And you can stop your opponent by like putting a disc of a certain number. But it's the most boring game you could possibly imagine for a man, for Rodney Dangerfield. It's like Rodney Dangerfield went up to Milton Bradley and said, I want a game with no respect. And they gave him exactly what he asked for.
He's like, no, that was supposed to be the name, not a game of no respect.
No, here's a board and some pieces. You figure it out yourself.
Oh my gosh.
Anyhow, don't look it up.
Too late. It's already on the notepad. Oh my gosh. So you're a producer. You do a couple different shows.
Yes.
Popcorn Roulette.
I do Popcorn Roulette, in which I ask a friend to come on the show and suggest a movie. I talk with them. I go watch the movie. I talk to them about the movie. And it's a bit of a review, but it's also a bit of an interview show because it's really, a lot of the times it's about people's favorite movies. And to some extent, it's a chance to get in the head of what people are thinking when they approach and when they like movies. And like I try to pull out a philosophy question every now and then somewhere towards the middle, because I think it's just fun to like get like general reactions of like, well, what is home? Like just get those sort of questions out of people, you know? But also I have Say Hello to Blackjack, which is a strange one. Oh, I'm going to forget his name. I hate myself for forgetting his name, but there's a manga author back in 2000. He wrote a manga about doctors and the political system that was the medical system in general. And this one doctor's trying to do right, but at the same exact time, he is constantly being pulled down to reality by his hospital that says like, no, we can't afford to do things this way. We need to be the ones that are in control and not the family. Those sorts of issues. And he released his work to the public domain like 5 years ago, and I was like, oh, I've been wanting to make a podcast. I'm going to make a podcast out of this. You gave me a green flag to actually to have a script to work with. So yeah, no, we got 2 seasons of Say Hello to Blackjack out there. And it's a great little, if you're into medical audio drama that's also a manga but in an audio format.
Seems like a very finite
it
niche
is
right there.
it is this really small filter. The few people who do love it, and everybody else is like, what the hell are you talking about,
Well, that's
um
interesting. It's interesting. It's interesting that he would release it to the public domain after like 5 years or 15 years.
I wish other people actually realized like the life cycle of my work is now complete, and I would just like to have people keep working on this while it's done, But unfortunately, it's gonna take a long time before people actually get that into their heads as being like a way to go, because it's always like as soon as somebody says, "But you could profit from it in the future," that's that's the mind killer. That's the thing that actually gets you in the end,
It's like capitalism at its best.
Yeah.
So you have a Kickstarter on
Yes.
Kickstarter right now
Right.
called Winning Streak, and it's a book.
Yeah. It's Tales and Trivia of the 40 Most Popular Board Games.
According to
Ranker, which is the worst possible source for this information. Here's how bad Ranker is. Ranker is so bad that they originally started off, like, if you go to, like, the worst presidents of all time on Ranker, it's people just going on and clicking up and down. It will almost always be the most recent president is worst, and the previous president was second worst, and the third previous, because people just they vote what they know, you know what I mean? And a lot of Ranker is just what people have been exposed to, and so a lot of the board games on this list is mostly about what has risen to the top over thousands of years, and we're sitting here in 2021, and now I'm taking a look at like what games do people recognize, and what games do people recognize above and beyond, because a game like Pandemic isn't terribly popular with the general public, but still has broken through off of the opinion of hobbyists to get enough upvotes to push up into this list anyways, despite the fact that there are games like Boggle, which didn't make the cut. It beat out games that the general public has recognized. So there's a big mix in here of games from like right now to like back to like the year 4000 BC.
Well, I did enjoy. I read the book
Yeah.
cover to cover, and of the 40 games, I had played 28 of them, and I own 21 of them.
Nice.
But only one of them had I owned that I haven't played yet. So I was like, that's pretty good. My shelf of shame's pretty big, but only one game was on the top 40 that I owned that I haven't played yet. So
there is a lot of games that like hobbyists in general are like ashamed to even admit that would actually be in their collection. I mean, like Sorry's on this list, and
I have that.
You have Sorry.
I have trouble.
You have trouble.
I also have a 9-year-old, so
yeah. I mean, I should also say, because it's not just those games either. There's Power Grid in there. There's Carcassonne in there. There's I know you asked people whether or not you pronounce it Catan or I can't even say it the other way.
That's right. It's Catan. It doesn't matter what the other way
is. It's not. It's neither. It's Settlers of Catan. It needs the Settlers part. I don't know why they chopped that off.
I think it's for name recognition, so they can put it really big on the box, just Catan.
Yeah.
And then they put real small, like, Settlers of or Expansion 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were some good games on there. There's some games that, like, I love King of Tokyo. I think it's one of the best games as far as easy to teach, fast to learn, quick to play, and accessible to so many people. It's such a great gateway game that I started playing it with my cousins years ago, and now I'm known as the cousin that brings King of Tokyo to the family get-togethers.
I mean, I 100% agree. One of the beautiful things is I know it sounds silly, because you would think that the whole entire point behind board games is you can play it right out of the box. Like, that should be the feel. But, like, so many games are just like, oh, I need to spend the weekend learning about this game and figuring it out and then convincing people to learn the rules with me. And I absolutely love those games. I love every single type of board game that's out there. But I mean, I can really appreciate a game that's done a fine job explaining itself in one page, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I told the story before, but like with my son, he was 3 when I got the game. My brother bought it for me for Christmas, and I just kind of opened it up, kind of set the pieces out in front of me, had the rules, and my son climbs up in my lap and says, "I want to learn." I'm like, "Okay." So I read him the rules, and he promptly beat me 2 games straight. So at that point, I thought, this game's broken. I'm not playing it right, or there's something wrong with this game.
That's all luck, you know?
This game is stupid. But we still play it. We've got the sister game, King of New York. So one thing I will say about your book, it gave me a book idea, but I'm going to need your help.
Okay.
I think we should review every Ticket to Ride out there.
Oh, good lord. There's so many. It's
Oh
crazy.
my gosh.
I mean,
I
like,
knew there were a lot, but good grief, you're not kidding. There are so many.
it's absolutely absurd. In my Ticket to Ride section, obviously, you went through my book, so like I went through all the homemade expansions and found
That's what I'm
the,
talking about.
I found the really weird ones that are out there. There were more really weird ones. I was just only so many that I really felt like these seemed to be the ones that really grabbed me. But but like just the normal ones, Ticket to Ride has like just done
13 or something.
some absurd number, and then
Yeah.
like to have like an expansion where like, oh, there's an alien and a monkey running around
I
or
had
whatever it
that.
actually
The T-Rex. Alvin and Dexter. I had it. I played it twice. It's so overpowering. It's insane.
is it
You
really?
you can really run the game with it. And so I play a lot at lunch, which is the purpose of my podcast, right? And we play a lot at lunch. We played it twice, and the person who just sat down and just played to just maximize Alvin and Dexter just ran away with the game.
I think we need to actually, at this point, we need to actually break through the other side, because it's clear that Ticket to Ride is one of those games that like anybody can make an expansion for it. Anybody, all somebody has to do is make a map and maybe a few more rules if you wanted to do something like that. So that we need to actually push to the other side and just be like, all right, we're just gonna make a Ticket to Ride community, and we're just gonna pump these things out and make as many maps as we can for as many weird and strange and exotic locations as we can.
I think my favorite one on there was the space. Like, it just makes no sense. I mean, okay, let's take away the trains and let's pretend the trains are spaceships, but
Sure.
still, planets are moving.
It's just like it's called space, but it's 100% in our solar system, which makes it even weirder. With a few black holes and a UFO kicking around for funsies.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. When I read that one, I was like, what?
Yeah.
So I had to click the link and go look at it, and I'm like, this is ridiculous.
There was a couple of that I actually pulled because I was being not so kind. Like it was actually gone a little bit too far into the other direction, and I was like, you know what? There's a point where it's just like, this is somebody else's hobby too, and this is something they love, and it's not, I shouldn't be attacking them, you know what I mean? Yeah, I'm sure space I didn't feel so bad about, because like they must know it's absurd what they just proposed, you know?
I mean, the Winnie the Pooh one's not great either.
No, I mean, the person who put forward Ticket to Ride Hawaii must understand there are no trains in Hawaii. You don't go back and forth between the islands on trains,
especially out into the water.
Yeah, just plowing through, going zigzagging between volcanoes. That's not how it works.
Don't mind the ocean. It moves for trains.
Yeah.
Oh,
but
that was one of my favorite. Oh my gosh. I read across that and I'm like, man, how funny would it be if we played like all the fan expansions and just like what's good, what's bad about it, like what's the longest route, just
I'm down
like,
for it. I really want
like
them to
really
tournament
take
to
it
exist.
way too seriously.
I want to take all these custom maps and just have like this one giant tournament, and everybody's just playing, and they're all on these different maps. And somebody's on Belgium over there, and somebody else is all the way over there in New Zealand, and they're all figuring it out. But someone is stuck in space.
Yeah, somebody's like, guys, hello. Oh my gosh, that floored me. Like I so I've downloaded the Sodor one. My kids are big fans of Thomas the Tank.
That's great. Yeah.
So I have the Sodor one. Even over the pandemic, the Age of Wonders, they actually released a print and play called the Stay at Home Edition. And it's actually like a house floor plan.
Oh, nice.
And so you have to get like from the kitchen to the bathroom, or
Yeah.
from dad's office to sister's bedroom. And so, and then it even has another rule variant, like you're saying. So it even has like these multicolored tracks, and you have to match it. And it's actually really great.
Yeah.
My son and I played that early in the pandemic, and I was like, man, this is pretty solid. And that's when, and I already knew there was some existing ridiculous fan made. One of my favorites at the long time ago that I came across was the Antarctica one.
Yeah.
Because obviously there's a whole bunch of trains in Antarctica.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Historically, one.
Yeah.
From like a base camp to a tent.
Yeah. And I just, man, I'm glad you wrote that chapter, not me, because I'd have gone down that rabbit hole and probably still be down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, no, I wish I was the guy who came up with Ticket to Ride is like just a license to print money. Somebody decided like, hey, Rummy plus a map, and just broke broke it right open. I feel bad because it's like nobody else can do that without actually somebody saying, oh, you just remade Ticket to Ride. And it's like, yes, I did. It's Rummy plus a map. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, but it's fun because like, so, but it's funny how you say that, but like it really does happen. So like the game that my partner and I made, which was Fences, it's a tile laying game, and everybody's like, oh, it's like Carcassonne.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it in the essence that it's tiles being played and connected, and you're trying to enclose things, then sure. But then at that point, like you're saying, every game's already made unless you come up with something, fresh.
I will say we used to have a running gag way back in the day. When I first started doing. I've been on like 3 separate board game review podcasts, but all 3 are defunct now, so that doesn't really matter much. But when we first
so
started,
I heard in your video.
Oh man, it's so sad. I think I've reviewed over 300 games for these 3 podcasts, but they're gone. So in the Myriad Game Session Impressions podcast we used to do, when we first starting, we're all kind of like new to the idea of hobby board games, and we're new to like podcasting and whatnot. And every single time we reviewed something, at some point in time, we'd mention Risk, and we'd compare something to Risk. And eventually it just became a running gag because we knew how bad that was. Somewhere in like episode 15 or 16, we're like, yeah, but so how is this like Risk?
That's a good idea. So, oh, Risk, the poor game.
Yeah, no, it's unfortunate. I mean, I love it in the fact that it gets people playing board games. I absolutely adore the fact that Risk is that gateway that a lot of people would never end up hitting the rest of the hobby without it. But sometimes you just have to like grit your teeth and be like, yeah, no, I'll play a game of Risk with you.
Oh, I mean, I've got Risk. I mean, I've got Monopoly. I love Monopoly. I'll still play a game of Monopoly.
Yeah, same here. I mean, it's all about that one big trade in the center. I don't know many other games that like all hinge on like the one turn that isn't even a turn. The one negotiation where somebody makes a monopoly and somebody else gets a few trains and $500. And the game just spirals out of control. It is the ultimate game of like king making. It is the easiest game to king make with.
Absolutely.
If you have like hard eyes for a girl and you hate your friends, play Monopoly.
Oh no, honey, here you go. Oh no, $5 is a good deal.
Like $200 for Boardwalk. I mean, I mortgaged it. I got my money back.
Yeah, we're good. Solid. So, I came across your Kickstarter, and as soon as I saw that it was a book, I'm like, well, I'm backing this.
Yeah.
And then, because I read a lot about board game design, board game history, board game strategy. It doesn't matter. I consume a lot of board game stuff. And then I watched your Kickstarter video, and I was like, and I got to reach out to this guy to talk to him because this guy's crazy like I am. So
yeah.
So for those of you who haven't already, and it will be linked in the show notes, go look at Winning Streak on Kickstarter. Definitely watch the video. It's a riot, and that's why John-Michael is on my show right now, is because
Thank you for thinking so. I will say this
yeah.
much though: when searching for books to compare my book to on Kickstarter, I think I did a general search for like board games and books. There is a surprising dearth of actual people writing books about board games out there. Um, I'm kind of on this minor mission to try to get people to write more about board games, not to, I mean, like the blogging and reviewing, the stuff I've been doing all along is also great. No problems there. There's always going to be a need for that. But damn, we need more people to sit down and take all their reviews and try to make a book out of it, because there just isn't as much. If you want to go out and find a book about movie reviews, it'd be easy. If you want to find a book about board game reviews, just a book about it, it's tough. You really got to dig.
Yeah.
But
I mean, my son and I, so I started reading to him at night board game books. And it started with Erin Dean, who was on my show a while back, and her book that I bought off a Kickstarter.
yeah,
And it's called For Love of Board Games. And she talks to all these board game designers about how they got into designing games and all this stuff. And so as we just kind of read through it, and my son was really digging it. And so we just kind of like, I was like, well, I got a whole bunch of board game books I've been meaning to read. So
yeah.
our nighttime bedtime stories became reading about board games.
Well, that's fun.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and there should be more. I kind of dove off, not delved. It's the wrong direction. I dove off into some of the other books, like creating board game groups, how to host a game night, that sort of thing. And so just fun little side trips along the way. But man, I mean, I do wish there were more, because I think I'm running out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which my wife's probably happy for, because she's like probably tired of all these books showing up.
Yeah, no, I mean, I remember this being, and this happens. I'm trying to combine multiple things in my head simultaneously. That's where the pileup happens. But like, as a kid going around in my library, I loved. I want to say Dewey Decimal 742 to 746. I'm off here. It's somewhere around there is where the board game stuff is, and the chess stuff is kicking around there, and the card game stuff.
792.
I haven't been inside the library in a little while, and that's on me. But yeah, 92 to 94 is like games of skill and games of chance. But like at the same exact time, I remember so many of these books being just analytical takes on just being like what best moves are, or something like that, and very little to do with like culture of like the board game experience. Or they'd be like a book on Monopoly or a book about Pac-Man, and that'd be about the rough extent of that.
The book about Pac-Man, Avoid the Ghosts.
Oh man, there's actually multiple books about Pac-Man back in the day that like tried to examine ghost pattern movements, which is just well beyond what most people. It's like writing a book about Rubik's Cube. It's like, guys, there's a small list of instruction here. You don't need a full book how to solve it.
Rubik's Cube is simple to solve. You peel off all the stickers and put them back on.
Yeah, you give it to somebody else, and you pay them $5.
I have a friend. I can hand him my Rubik's Cube, and he can do it while talking to me. And he's like, "Here, it's just a pattern." It's the way he tells me. It's just a pattern. I'm like, well, I can't remember it. So.
Yeah, it's no pattern. I know. It's just like playing 21 is just card counting. But I can't. My head's not going to be in the game the entire time. I'm going to have a whiskey in one hand and somebody talking to me the other ear, and I'm going to lose count very, very fast.
Guaranteed.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm actually bad at board games, by the way.
Hey, I'm terrible at board games, and I track my board gaming on an app, which proves I'm terrible at board gaming. I have an app that tells me I'm bad at it. I have a son that tells me I'm bad at it. I have friends, but I love to play. It's not going to stop me.
It almost seems like I think the games I'm worst at are the ones I seem to like the most, actually. It's the ones that I feel like I'm still learning something from, And I'm just like fighting I'm actively fighting the way the game wants. The game wants me to combo, and I'm like, no, I'm going to do a little bit of everything, and I'm going to win that way.
Well, it's like the other one is like you win a game a bunch of times. Like I'm going to buy this game, and then once you buy it, you never win it again.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm really good at this game.
Yeah, yeah,
No, I'm not.
no.
Oh, so if I came to your house in Massachusetts right now,
Yes, yes.
what is your favorite game currently on your table?
Fiasco's always been the go-to. I always try to get people to drag people into that. Have you come across Fiasco, by the way? It's a role-playing game. It's not actually a traditional board
I
game.
do know what you're talking about. I have not played it. I have seen the books. I just
Yeah,
haven't.
it's it's a game without a dungeon master. It plays about 2 hours like it's a movie, and it's like a Coen brother movie where everybody gets together and they are their own worst enemy, which is one of the major reasons why it doesn't need a dungeon master, because it presumes we're all going to end up doing something terrible to ourselves, and in the end we're all going to get our own comeuppance. It has a second act break, which you roll for something and it's like, oh well, everything's on fire and the cops are onto you. So like it kind of changes, it makes sure that things are going bad. It's got a certain pool of dice where like people push positive or negative dice on you to tell you like if the scene is going well or if it's going poorly. So and is very good at like building relationships with between characters without actually making them, without telling you what to do. So as far as games are concerned, it's always my favorite because I've never seen a group get together and play it and not get it after a little while. But there is
Hmm.
that sort of process of getting it, because a lot of people come to role playing games from like a Dungeons and Dragons sort of thing, of being like kind of used to there being a dungeon master and somebody in control, and I'm rolling a bunch of dice, and that ain't happening. And a lot of people don't know, you know, play acting itself is kind of off the table. But Fiasco does a very good job being like, it keep pushing you to be like, no, no, things are going poorly. Like the whole point of this game is they're gonna go poorly and worse.
What do you think a fiasco is?
Yeah, exactly.
It's my daily life.
So in a sense, like I've seen games where people come on, know nothing about games, know nothing about role playing games, and they start like trying to build bridges and solve problems, and then the game's just like, no, this is going to turn into a fight. You guys are going to start arguing, and then they have to be like, oh, I guess I'm arguing with you, and that we did not resolve all our problems. Get out of here, screw you.
This game isn't
um,
called peace, it's called fiasco.
so it's been great. So it's been great like that. That's the one that's actually that I'm always playing. As to what's out right now, if you came to my house, you've been to Finding Axis and Allies, because it's the only game that's in the book that I had not played since the 20th century.
Oh
And
man.
I just wanted to play Axis and Allies again, so I just bought myself a copy of Axis and Allies. We played it on our Friday night board game play group, and everybody came in a little bit late that night. It was 10:30. We played 3 rounds. The game ended in 3 rounds, and it ended at 5:30 at night. Like I remember being like, it takes forever to set up, and people just sit there and they mull over their decisions, and then like it takes so long to play around now. It's like, but it can't possibly be that bad. I've played so many board games since the 1990s. It's like, nope, still that bad. I mean, it's a great game, but like it's a very different type of great. It's like a form of torture you enjoy. I don't understand.
I love it. I had a friend that it was his game, and man, he always wanted to be the Axis powers, always wanted to be Germany, and like all you got's a hammer, every problem's like a nail. So like
Yeah,
he always had one strategy, and it's like, well, all you do is minimize that one strategy, and then you just kind of ran him over because he would work so hard on building up Germany, he'd forget about Japan.
yeah,
So you just kind of sweep over, take Japan. Yeah, I might lose England, but
right.
I got a big Russia now, and then you just move America in, and it's over. So it was. I played many, many, many games of Axis and Allies. Like you said, start playing late at night into the early morning, but we'd leave it out on the floor and then
Yeah,
go mow yards and do all of our chores and then come back and play some more.
do everything you can to make sure the cat doesn't end up in the room.
Good news was he was allergic to cats, so there were no cats at his house. Where at my house there was always cats.
Right.
So you said you work third shift.
Yes.
So do you play lunchtime games with your coworkers?
No, actually, I spend a lot of time reading during my lunch shift. That's actually one of the main reasons why my coworkers wouldn't play games with me anyways. I work with a bunch of old men, and if I was lucky, maybe I could convince them into a game of hearts. But
Cribbage. Go get
cribbage.
them some cribbage.
Gotta pull to their level, like what they're
Hey,
interested in,
whatever. Yeah, start there and build.
But
My son and I have really gotten into cribbage and backgammon lately.
yeah. That's great. Around here, we have a game by the name of 45s, which is incredibly local. It is just Merrimack Valley, and occasionally it pops up in other, like, it's like there might be a guy who plays it in Scotland and somebody in Minnesota, sort of thing. But like, it's very much like if you ask somebody what card game they play within this group of 6 cities, they'll be like, "Oh, we're playing 45s." Like, they don't know how to play hearts or spades or anything like that. And like, maybe they know poker, but like 45s is the game to play. It's what everybody plays around
I
here.
grew up in Indiana. It was always euchre.
Yeah, euchre.
And when I left Indiana, I'm like, "What do you mean you don't know how to play euchre? I've been playing euchre since I could, like, probably before I could even talk. What do you mean you can't play euchre? But euchre's at least in books. I've never seen 45s appear in any card game.
You can find it in Hoyles. It is in Hoyles, called Auction 45s. But it is this weird, like, hey, you've got a copy of Hoyles right there, huh?
I do.
That's great.
Holy cow! Auction 45.
There you go. You found it.
Page 104.
It's actually, here's your little piece of trivia. It's called 45. It's called 45s because the name is half French. It's actually forte fives. It means strong fives, because the 5 is the most powerful card. What do you call that? The trump card, I guess. Except there's trumps also in that game. So, but like, yeah, no, it's all about how you bid in that game. It's got a little bit of like a poker feel because you only have 5 cards, and then everybody's bidding to figure out who has the best hand.
So, not that anybody listening to us can see this, but the game listed right underneath 45 is euchre. Oh, nothing like a story coming all the way back around.
It's just like, we're gonna shove this someplace in Hoyles. Put them all with and also some people play these games back in the year 1900.
That's hilarious. So, if you could get these old guys to play games with you, what 60-minute go-to game would you try?
Oh, between these games or just in general? I don't know. I like, as for like trying to just jump people into a 60-minute game.
Or just if you had a group of people that you were going to play a 60-minute game, gamers like or whatever, but a 60-minute.
I like pulling out Dice Town. It's that the poker hand dice game where people are trying to get the most types of dice and then going in and taking little things off. I don't know. I just enjoy like how easy that is to get in for like a lot of different people. And I'm generally never really upset with a game of Dice Town, but like, I don't know.
I've always been curious about that game. There's a couple expansions for it, and I like games that have expansions just because I like to like really spend a lot of money on a game.
I will say part of the problem with Dice Town though is like if you play with too many people, like there's an option for like, so the way you do it is you roll a bunch of poker dice, you make decisions, you put some money in the pot and whatnot, and then you roll them again, and you're trying to make, in theory, you're trying to make the best hand, but you're also like the person with the most nines gets something, the person with the most tens gets something, the person with the most jacks gets something, going down the line, and then eventually you get to Dr. Bad Luck, and if you didn't get anything previously, you get a little bonus. Problem is, Dr. Bad Luck's bonuses are actually pretty good. So it really does encourage people to be like, oh, looks like I did terrible again.
Oh, darn.
And the more people you play with, the more likely that's going to happen. It's just like, oh, I didn't get anything. Oh, well. It's a fun game. I don't know. I've noticed a lot of games don't play. So this is part of the problem. Games I play tend to play 30 minutes or 2 hours. Like the 1 hour games, there are all these games on the shelf that say they're an hour, but like I don't know many of them that I've actually played and sat down for an hour and played this game,
Well, we started off with Catan in my office, and
Catan's like an hour game.
You give everybody, well, I think the box says an hour, but I think but what we found is if you give everybody a set of dice, the game goes so much faster because you're not chasing the dice around.
Right.
Everybody's got their dice, or even if you had two sets, so two, two pair can share the dice. That sped the game up so much for us.
Yeah.
Which I would also like to say, as part of your book,
Yeah.
your development cards are a great idea.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
And when I'm lucky enough to interview Klaus Teuber, which will probably never happen, but if it does, I'm going to pitch that idea because I think that
they need to be play tested, obviously. But yeah.
Well, yeah, I got to play. I downloaded them today. I will definitely be printing them off and playing with them. But the idea of the night cards not just being a night card, but a night card and something else is such a good idea that it's almost crazy to me that there hasn't been some expansion to Catan that does that.
Yeah.
With all the expansions and all the scenarios and variants and everything that's been added to that game, I am amazed that somebody hasn't, Klaus or whoever,
right,
hasn't come out and said, here's a new deck of development cards. The idea is great because I like how you even talked about it, saying like it's not just a catch-up mechanic anymore. It's something, it gives you a reason to go after development cards, even if you're in the lead, because you can, getting the night card when you're just trying to dig out those victory point cards.
Right. That is the thing that always bugged me about Catan, because like as a catch-up mechanic, it's also a hole. It can send you even further away from where the game is going. It's like, I'm not going to build anymore. I'm going to try to catch up. Oh, these aren't helping,
Right. Great. I got 7 knights and I got 5 knights and I still don't have largest army and
right.
wasted all those resources. And yeah, I liked it. I thought that was a good idea. I downloaded it. I can't wait to give it a play test. But that's part of your book too. That was pretty cool. I mean, I love Catan. It's what got me into gaming. It's what got my office into gaming, and it's really gone absolutely crazy since then. But the idea of the knights doing something was really cool.
Yeah, no, I'm rather glad you appreciate that, because I was very afraid that I was boring a lot of readers by like, oh, I'm just gonna do like a design clinic right now in the middle of this game fun a book about games.
No.
And so I put a disclaimer in front of that section.
Oh no, so I downloaded. So the funny thing is, I downloaded them, read through them, and then I read that section. I'm like, well, man, I could have just skipped this whole section because I already read all the cards, but whatever. Yeah. So you said you like 30-minute games. What are your go-to 30-minute games?
Well, I like playing Splendor because I lose all the time at it.
I am so good at losing that game. I'm not even sure I've ever won that game.
I don't know if I've won Splendor either. See, we're right on the same. What would end up happening if we played a game together? We'd be so confused. Somebody would have to win.
We'd just fall asleep.
It gets to the end. I was like, oh no, someone might win. And just gone.
It's like the end of the world happened.
What happened? Who won? I don't know.
Now, I'm pretty sure I've never won Splendor, but if I have, it's like once and by accident.
Yeah. No.
But well, what a beautiful game.
It's a spectacular game. I love, I mean, I don't know. Part of my problem is that I tend to, when I'm playing a game like that, I tend to build very long term, and I'm trying to amass like a machine that will not trigger until 3 days later, after I've played the game, if I continue at the path I'm going right now, and
yeah,
but games need to end, and I'm constantly aiming for a game that's going to end 5 hours from now. It's never going to work. You know what I end up pulling out oftentimes is, I know you're going to end up jumping to micro games anyways. One of my favorite games is Three Dragon Ante. I don't know if you got a chance to play that.
Dungeons and Dragons, familiar with that one.
Dungeons and Dragons made this game and then like pushed it as being like and if you're ever at a tavern, you could play some Three Dragon Ante. It's like, thanks TSR, I'll play this game you made for me. It's a card game. It's gonna be great. Everybody's gonna have a good time. And it turns out it's an excellent game. Like, I love how this game plays out. It's man, I'm trying to remember exactly what's going on. I have to pull out the rules to get everything that's in the game, but there's definitely the process of like making so like you're trying to build a best hand, but you're also playing dragons from your hand. You're playing cards from your hand, and each time you play a card, it has an effect on the game. Like if I play a black dragon, I steal coins from somebody else's side, but I'm also getting rid of my best cards. So you're trying to make a best flight, and at the same exact time, you're trying to manipulate the board. And it's just this great little game that doesn't take up that much space. The Emperor's Gambit box also, if anybody gets that one, I'd suggest getting, it's a standalone expansion in a sense, but like the box itself is a little bit of magic because it's just cardboard, but it like clicks open and clicks close. I don't know how many times I've clicked this box open and close. You're like, check this out, this is awesome. It's just a little tab, it just fits perfectly. I cannot explain it, but it's just a perfectly built little game, and it goes right inside. I have a quiver that you normally hold Magic the Gathering cards in, and I've been trying to make a micro game quiver out of it, so I can just sling it across my back and go someplace with it. I need to get a fake artist.
Some big heavy duty magnets in there, and it'll just snap right shut. You may it'll just rip the cardboard when you go to open it, but hey, it worked once.
Yeah, I need to get a fake artist Ghost of New York inside my quiver, because a party game micro game is a definite boon. I'm slowly. I can't say enough good things about 3. See, I'm gonna say this. I'd be like, this is a great game, and then everybody ends up playing. It's like, this guy is full of.
Hey, I mean, it is what it is.
Everybody has a game which they love, which everybody else thinks is a terrible idea, and you have to drag them into it. I know I have a case full of Marvel Legendary, the deck building game, with like all the expansions, and I have to drag people into playing this thing with me because it isn't fun, and I've come to accept this.
Well, I think what made me laugh the most about that game was it was like a game by Upper Deck, and I'm like, the baseball card company?
The funny thing is when they made their Legendary Aliens and Legendary Predator, those are actually fun games. They figured out how to make it fun, and the answer was partially to get rid of because Marvel Legendary has a mechanic where we're all working together to beat the villain, but also we're trying to make the most points. So the players are kind of, there's a best winner, and oftentimes that causes sabotage at the table. And sometimes you get some players who are just like, well, if I'm not going to win, then I'm going to make everyone else lose. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like if you play a cooperative board game and somebody starts doing that, you kick them out of your house. But also they did that. So it's tough, and I think that's where that game suffers the most. But you play Legendary Aliens though, we're all working together, and the aliens are kind of creeping up the field, and we're trying to shoot them all down. It's a much nicer experience, and feels like you're playing the movie out. But yeah, no, that my
do you always shout at the end? It's game over, man. It's game over. I mean, if you're not, you're missing the opportunity every time you play.
Yeah. I need to. You're right. I should actually just have that as a sound file.
Yeah, absolutely. Good old Bill Paxton.
I don't have hidden gems or guilty pleasures. I think all my games are guilty pleasures on some level or another.
If somebody has even a guilty pleasure, I wouldn't even know where to start. I'm like, yeah. I have so many games that like.
I'll tell you the one game that I can get the most people to hate me for having played is Nomic, which isn't even a game. It's not something you buy on board game shelves. It's a philosopher's game from the 1980s, which roughly comes down to, we go around in turns, and one person decides upon a rule, and we all vote on it. And then the next person decides upon a rule, and we all vote on it. And the idea is at some point in time, someone's going to win at the end of this game. And it all just becomes about manipulating rules and democracy. And I find the game fascinating. And everybody, like, I just want to sit there and argue with people all night long. And everybody else is just like, this is terrible. We're all just yelling at each other. I'm like, I know, isn't that great?
Isn't that basically what Super Fight is?
Roughly. It is very much like a long car drive sort of game. It's games like that, games like Mao, where two people know the rules to the game, but like everybody else at the table doesn't, and they have to figure out as we play the game how the game works. I love seeing those pull out, but I'm really, really, I feel bad by the time we get to the end, because obviously I've just spent this entire time having a bunch of friends be confused and be like, what are we even doing? What's this game playing
The
out?
last time I go to that guy's house.
Really? These are the
Game
games I
night
pull out.
pass.
These are the games I pull out only for the people I trust. I would never do that to somebody on the first time you came to board game night. But yeah, where are we?
Where are we?
Where are we right now? I'm used to actually conducting the interview as part of the problems.
Hey, there you go. I mean, you can ask me questions. It's my podcast. We can do whatever we want.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm sure I can't use your questions though, because you've answered these multiple times in your own show. I'm sure many times over.
I mean, I answer a lot of them a lot of the times.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go back and listen, you'll hear a lot of the same stories because I don't have a lot. I guess. I mean, I don't know. I have a lot of stories. So
you like what you like. That's the whole entire point. So you're gonna keep saying this. I ask you what you like. You repeat it another time.
So Kickstarter, one of my last question here that I usually ask. Oh no, shoot, we skipped the color question. What color do you have to be when you play?
Oh, I play purple. I'm
purple.
All in purple.
Well, you love my game.
Yeah, that's the color that's always set aside. Nobody wants purple.
No, so purple's in my game because it's my son's favorite color, and we were making the game, and my business partner and I were like, we need 4 colors. I'm like, well, it's got to be red because I like to play as red.
Right.
Tim, he's like, I don't really care, and I'm like, well, it's and then but my son was like a big play tester of our game when we were doing it. His favorite color is purple, so we went purple. And I think the other 2 are blue and yellow in the base game, which made my friend mad because his favorite color was green, but you had to buy the expansion or the extension that goes to 5 and 6 player to get the green. So, and I didn't really realize how possessive people can get over their colors.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely.
Yeah, I've sold the extension just because the person wanted the green houses. I'm like, I'll just, I'll just give you the green houses if that's all you want.
No, you got it the right call there. You in your main game, you never put blue and green together is the actual key point. And one, because a lot of people like blue. Most people, blue is the number one color, but also a lot of people like green. But blue-green color blindness is a very big thing.
I agree.
Avoiding that as much as possible is ideal.
So as a board game designer, there's actually a Kickstarter, or not Kickstarter, there's a Facebook group that's dedicated to board game design colorblind help. And so you can kind of get your game together and then say, hey, can you, is this colorblind friendly? And that's one of the other, not to keep going back to how great Ticket to Ride is, but Ticket to Ride does such a great job with that, between the colors, all the cards are different, and then they put the little symbol not only on the card but also on the space out on the board.
Right.
And so there's all kinds of help on that one.
Every time I don't see something to help the colorblind people, I get a little bit confused because I just would have figured somewhere in the editing process somebody would have caught that. But it so commonly comes up. I say this at the same exact time. I don't know anybody who has a problem with it, but I know it's so common.
Yeah.
It's one of those things it's one of those things that when you review enough games, it pops up. And I know I've done that. Like another thing that it would always catch me is when I see no flavor text in the rule book. And I'm like, come on, guys. You could have come up with a paragraph story.
That's kind of a sticking point between me, this extrovert crazy guy, and my business partner is like this introvert engineer. Yeah. And so for him, rules are like rule 1, rule 2, rule 3.
Yeah.
Our rule books are great. The rules are very well explained, no. But you need to throw some flavor in there.
A little sidebar, little something tells me like, oh, is a quote from somebody like from your world. That's all I need. I don't need you to go off and make a whole story for me. I'm not going to read a whole story. I just want to feel like there's a bigger world going on.
That's an RPG. I'm not here to play an RPG. I just want to fence in some animals. Like I like Get Bit, where they're like, you're a robot swimming in the ocean. Why? Who cares? It's one of the most ridiculous flavor texts ever.
Yeah.
I'm a robot swimming in the ocean?
Do I have to worry about the amount of rust I'm taking on? No? Okay.
No, the shark will eat you long before the rust gets you.
Is it a robot shark? Like, what's going on here?
Oh man. So Kickstarter, are you a backer or
I
just a
am. Not
creator?
not too often. I don't back too often, but there's occasional projects pop up, and I happen to spot them. Most recently, I don't know if you've noticed. There's a YouTube channel by name that's been playing Actually, which is a game show in which Mike Trapp acts as host, and he says something really nerdy about nerd culture. He's like talks about like Star Wars and explains all the bounty hunters. And at some point in time, someone has to ring in and say like, actually, Boba Fett actually came from the planet, yada yada. Like actually know the super specific nerdy thing that's actually in the thing that's wrong and the sad thing he said, which includes a bunch of comments that sound so absurd that they must be wrong, but those are the right things. Anyhow, actually is making a board game right now. It's like a home version of the game. So I'm already back. I backed that in 1 minute. Uh, I wish I did back more on Kickstarter, but truth is I'm poor.
I am because I'm poor because I back a lot on
because you back a
Kickstarter.
lot on Kickstarter. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a great thing. It's a, and it is kind of a slippery slope that once you start going down it, you just kind of keep going. And then, you know, when COVID hit, that was kind of an interesting thing because games kind of halted, and and then like when they would get shipped and they would get stuck in ports, and so things seem to be moving smoother, but the timelines are pushed way out if you're going
Right.
through coming
Right.
from China.
Right. Right. Because all of our stuff has become low priority compared to like soybeans and whatnot. What's your over under on success rate when it comes to Kickstarters that you've backed? Not talking about whether or not the game is
Uh,
good or not, because that's another problem altogether. But
so I try to not necessarily always back winners.
mm,
Most of mine do go, but the ones that don't, I then because I had a really interesting, I think's the word,
mm,
uh flavorful maybe experience with our game on Kickstarter, and I've been trying to reach out to other designers, but I try to reach out to these other backers where I feel like I can help them and say, hey, I backed your thing. I saw it didn't go. Do you want to talk and meet? I've got some ideas, some suggestions, and then I've also kind of built a crew here in St. Louis that I bring in too. So I'm a member of the board game St. Louis Board Game Design Alliance or Board Game Meetup or whatever we call ourselves. I don't know. Bunch of board game nerds get together and we discuss board game design. We play test each other's games, give feedback. It's a great group of guys. And so one of the guys in there, he kind of had this idea, and so I've been kind of funneling. I keep my eye open for a lot of Kickstarters, and when I see games that I feel like this game has something, it's just not marketing right. It's not,
mm,
like the game that I keep talking about lately is this game. I like to back at the print and play level too,
yeah,
so I can
yeah, yeah, yeah.
pay $5, whatever, and I still get your game, and I've got plenty of dice and plenty of whatever. But this game, it was like 200 dice, and the print and play was like $5. I'm like, man, I don't have 200 dice sitting around to play, and it had to be like 40 of this color, 40 of this color, and I'm like, there has to, but the
Were
game's
they
so
all
fun.
D6s too, or was it like a nice broad mix, or
I'm
what was
pretty sure
going
they
on?
were all D6s,
Yeah.
but the game seemed solid. And so I kind of sent it to my buddy and I'm like, hey, take a look at this. I think this is a good opportunity to work with another gamer. So he's going to have a meeting with him this week. So to answer your question is, I have a really good success rate but the ones that don't hit nowadays, they don't hit. And I try to reach out to them and help them. I'm working on a book that kind of the trials and tribulations of making our game.
Mm,
That's a story in and of itself, just kind of going that with that. And so trying to help these other smaller manufacturers or smaller publishers get their game to market. We've been pretty successful helping getting one guy so far that we've met with reworked it pushed it back out, and it's going to succeed. So we're trying to build that momentum and try to help push some people to success, just because I want to see more games out there and I want to see these smaller publishers succeed, and not always just have it be some big giant.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's an interesting model. We'll see how Kickstarter keeps going in the coming years, with GameFound now kind of pushing itself out there as like the new Kickstarter, and so we'll see if that what that does.
I can't remember where I was reading it. It might have been Wired or something like that, but like they were talking about how like the board game market has been shifting because of Kickstarter, with a real problem of being like all the expansions are coming out all at once now because they're all being part of like the stretch goals, and that we aren't getting a chance to play a game, wait 6 months, see what was wrong with it because the community had a chance to respond to it, and then proceed to put out a new expansion.
So you nailed it. So we did Fences, got some feedback. We've been kicking around some ideas. We had a handful of expansion ideas for the game when we created Fences, but we wanted to just get the base core game done
Yeah.
and out to people. And then we listened, took some feedback, took some ideas, and started working those. And then we came up with the ranch as an expansion pack for the game. And I want to say we launched 8 months to a year later. I'm kind of fuzzy after 2020, throwing my entire idea of what time is.
Right.
And it bombed.
Right. Because people don't know what you're talking about. I mean, on Kickstarter, the general mass audience, you know?
Yeah. And so we learned a lot. Again, I learned a lot. I've learned so much. And what do they say? You learn you learn from your mistakes. And, I've learned a lot from Hard Knocks. So I'm hoping we got 2 games in development right now that we're hoping to push out this year. The ranch is still kind of on the back burner, but we realized a lot of the mistakes we made with that game and what we did wrong with the marketing. We're working with some marketing companies now, trying to both as twofold, right? Trying to work as the company and my podcast, and then also trying to work as a board game to Kickstarter. So it's kind of 2 different marketing strategies that we're trying to get moving. So it's been a lot of fun and a lot of learning.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the way you move forward, right?
That's
You keep
right.
learning.
That's right. So if people wanted to reach out to you, John-Michael, how could they do that?
Well, the best way, if you're trying to get in touch, if they want to check out my blog, they can find me at Dial D for DM. It's DIALD number 4 DM.com. But if they're looking for Winning Streak, the Kickstarter is going on right now when we're releasing this episode. The fastest way to get to that is winningstreakbook.com. It's going to redirect people directly to the Kickstarter. When the Kickstarter is no longer active, winningstreakbook.com is still going to exist. And it's going to be taking up emails so that someday when the book ends up on Amazon, I can send an email list out to people or redirect people to Amazon. So that website will always work. So that's that game plan. And then you want to check out Say Hello to Blackjack, just type Say Hello to Blackjack in your computer. I'll probably come up. If you want to check out my movie streaming show by the name of Popcorn Roulette, go to popcornroulette.org. And we watch a bunch of fun movies there. I'm on YouTube as well. That's where you probably would end up watching my stuff. But yeah, no, I jump around in projects. I could keep going. They get less interesting after a while, though.
I understand. Like, I always joke that somebody's like, "When do you have time for all with all this?" I'm like, "Man, I'm ADD. The more stuff I have to do, the better.
Oh,
The focused I can be."
That is how I work. I bounce around, and then when I was in my 20s, I'd fail to produce. Now that I'm got a bit more maturity in my hand, I know I need to bounce around in projects that will finish. So there's a big difference between the way I operate, the past 7 to 10 years, let's say, and the way I used to operate back then, where I'd be like writing scripts for comic books that would go out to episode 3 and then drop it and then just do something else. Like, I don't do that sort of thing anymore. I make sure I finish my projects, but I'm also too long term, like I said, and I'll end up, my project will be finished in like 20, 30 years. I'll be long dead by that point or whatnot. So
It'll be somebody else's problem then.
It'll be somebody else's problem. The internet will change completely, and we'll all be like downloading stuff directly into our microchips behind our cerebellum. So
I think they made a movie about that with Keanu Reeves and Dolph Lundgren.
It could.
Johnny Mnemonic is what the name of the movie was.
Oh man, Johnny! Look, I know you're trying to wrap up. We're not going to go into the entire cyberpunk genre from the 1990s now.
I just loved how Dolph Lundgren's credited as Street Preacher. That's the name of his character.
That's spectacular. I will just say I've been playing Cyberpunk 2077 right now, and I'm very pleased that the game decided that the world of Cyberpunk 2020 happened, and like there was a divergence in timelines from like 1990 from the original role-playing game, and just said, nope, whatever it thought the world would be like in 2020, it was totally all that. Like, that happened. The cyberpunk world of 2020 already happened, and we're now just 40 years in the future because it doesn't make sense now. But yeah, off the subject. Back to closing words.
So before I go, I want to say, get on the Kickstarter, back the book. The PDF is only like $5.
Yeah.
But every time I back a book at PDF, I always regret it. And so I highly recommend backing it at the color level, the color, glossy, paperback, hardback, take your pick.
Yeah.
I highly recommend backing at the color level. There's a lot of pictures. Hopefully we'll get more pictures based on the stretch goals.
Yep.
I also just want to draw attention to the top line is like, this is like board game history meets bathroom reader. Who doesn't love the old Uncle Johnny's bathroom reader? So this was very reminiscent of reading those old books. So like I said, I plowed through this book in about a day and a half, and I kind of want to go back and reread it, and because there's a lot of fun anecdotes in there that, like I said, I read it so fast that I didn't have time to really let them soak in. It's a great read. I highly recommend it. It's one of my, like you said, it's a great book. Just kicking around board games. Like, why not?
Yeah.
And as usual, you can reach me on Facebook at facebook.com/eatlunchandboardgame, or email me at eatlunchandboardgame@gmail.com. And remember, board games build bridges.
Stay in tune with all things sports around Indiana and the nation with the Crash Course Podcast. Each week, we tackle the big storylines from the world of the Colts, Pacers, and the Indiana college scene, while also keeping a pulse on the nation. We record live weekly at twitch.tv/3C Media and can be found on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever podcasts can be heard. You can catch the Crash Course Podcast.
When you're gaming, why not be comfy? Go over to supportplayer.org. Click on the cards, pieces, and dice to get some merch. These t-shirts are some of the most comfortable I have ever worn. That's supportplayer.org, and there's a link on eatlunchandboardgame.com.